December 31st, 1983. The winter of my 6th year at the Arklay Research Center. For the past 2 years, there were no significant results, and time seemed to just stagnantly flow along. But before long, we had a breakthrough. The thing that started it all was a report we got that morning. Antarctica Alexia had died. The cause of her death was that she accidentally got infected by a virus that she herself was researching. It was called the T. Veronica virus. Alexia was 12 years old. It seemed she was just a little too young to be undertaking such dangerous experiments. There were many rumors to be heard. One particular rumor actually suggested that she injected the T. Veronica into her own body. No matter what the circumstances, I find that particular theory to be implausible. Probably, she was just so shaken up over her father's disappearance 1 year earlier that she just made a mistake in the experiment. After that, Alexia's last remaining blood relative, her twin brother, who had worked in the Antarctica Research Center, came and picked up her work where she left off, but no one had any expectations of him. In the end, the Ashford family was basically dead, without even yielding a single advance for the experiment. It was just as I thought. A legend is, after all, merely that, a legend. After the news of Alexia's death, Birkin changed. Or I guess I should say, he returned back to his normal self. But I guess the biggest thing was that all of his subordinates now had no choice but to think of him as the main researcher, since now there was no one who could surpass his talents. However, with that, it became taboo for anyone to talk about Alexia in front of him. He fiercely opposed me when I planned on getting a sample of the T. Veronica virus. I had no choice to put finding the truth about Alexia's research on the back burner. In the end, even though the situation was at its best, Birkin himself failed to grow up and advance his research. However, at that time, I was concerned more about a different question at hand. The Arklay Research Center was surrounded by a dense forest. I often hiked through the forest, but since the center was located in a mountain region, there was never anyone to be found nearby. The only method of transportation was by helicopter, and the center wasn't exactly the type of place that people came to visit. One important reason for the fact that the center was located in such an isolated location was to prevent the virus from getting out in the instance of a leak. However, biological weapons aren't that simple. Viruses don't only infect humans, they can infect other things as well. Any virus is usually capable of infecting more than one host. For example, the number of species that the ordinary influenza virus, the common flu, is recognized as infecting are birds, pigs, horses, seals, and humans. The difficult part is not that all types of animals, people within a species are affected. Even though within the bird species, ducks and chickens are affected, all other birds are not. And if a virus mutates, then the kinds and number of hosts it affects changes. So, it is impossible to create a virus that is capable of affecting everything. And that was the main problem, trying to adapt the T-virus so that it would affect everything that it came in contact with. After Birkin became useless, I started investigating the T-virus's communicative infection rate. It was then that I found out it was a fact that the T-virus could infect almost any kind of living thing. Not just animals, but plants, insects, fish, almost any species. The virus had the power to expand and disperse all over the earth. Whenever I would leave the center for a walk in the woods, I would always think to myself, Why did Spencer choose this place? Because there were lots of different types of species concentrated in the woods. If the virus ever did get out here, then what would happen to a place where there were this many type of living things present? In the case of insects, they are small, so you might not think of them as dangerous, even if they are secondary carriers of the virus. However, insects usually exist in swarms, and that huge number makes them a very dangerous carrier indeed. If they were carriers, then how far would the virus spread? If a plant was a carrier then, since they can't move, you wouldn't expect them to be able to infect many people. However, what about the pollen that comes from plants? Considering those factors, the center was an extremely dangerous place to run virus research. And if you really think about it, the location of the Ashford's Antarctica Research Center was really a much safer and obvious choice. It would almost seem as if this place was specifically chosen as a location for the purpose of spreading the virus. But I just can't imagine that would really be so. What is Spencer trying to get us to do? This was a major issue, so big that I couldn't tell the other researchers. At this time, the only person that I felt I could have talked with about this was Birkin, but it was evident that telling him would be meaningless. I needed more information. It was at that time that I first began to feel the limitations of my position as researcher. I needed to get myself a position that had more access to information that would reveal Spencer's true objective. I felt no love lost for throwing away my position as a researcher in order to find out. But I couldn't rush things, because if Spencer ever got wind of what I was doing, then it would be all over. I jumped back into my research, and it was business as usual, so as not to call attention to my plans. During those times, the female test subject that continued to survive was left in some corner and forgotten. A living could have been. We began to call her that, sometime after she stopped yielding useful data for us. At least, until 5 years later, that is.